Hi, I'm Lindsay, and this is Kinda Healthy Podcast. Today's guest is Courtney of Courtney's Food Fixx. Courtney is a believer in the power of food. She's a culinary arts professional, entrepreneur, and more. Her life mission is to help people love themselves. Here's my conversation with Courtney.
Nice to meet you. Nice to see your face.
Thank you. I know I'm pretty good at not putting anything about myself online or anything like that. But yeah, I'm real.
Yeah, that's really neat. So that's exciting.
Yeah. One of the first things that really stuck out to me was your positive attitude and your really just love of food. And I know that's something that a lot of people struggle with because we tend to turn food into the enemy and this thing that we have to fight against all the time. So why don't you let people know a little bit of where your positive outlook comes from and what maybe some people can do to kind of foster that in themselves?
Well, for me, I went through, everybody goes through a journey with food, right?
Right.
In some form or fashion. If they're, whether they lived a life of lack and without, and food was a very hard point for them, or whether, someone grew up wealthy and had access to an amazing amount of food, but somewhere in there, especially being a woman, there's this point in which you begin to define yourself a little bit by your food, right, depending on how that manifests for you. And so I was actually an obese child. Mm-hmm. But my family, we dined. I come from a family that loved food. I come from a family of a mother who was a great cook. And then there was this time in which several of us were overweight. So here you are with this thing that is such a central and integral part of your life of that is a defining point. I remember, we would go out on Thursdays. We would go out on Sundays. My mother would make a specific meal on Fridays. So here you are, your life is being dictated by these meals. Mm-hmm. And they're great meals. They're not bad meals.
Right.
And then as that's happening and as you're indulging and as you're dining and you're eating too much, then when you come to that point, and then I remember that as a young girl, I was a lot. It was just awful. I was, there were very few fat kids during those days. And that, that was, fine. But I remember a point thinking, wow, I'd like a date. And it shouldn't be defined that way. Mm-hmm. As we well know, but in those days it often was. And so at that point, then deciding how I was going to look at food. And then, I'd gone to one of my father's colleagues, and he told me that if I continued eating the way that I was, that I could die. And so at that point, I had to change my viewpoint. And I mean that I think I was 14, and then decided, I went and got this Weight Watchers book off of I found it in the library, and I got it off the shelf, and I decided that day that I was going to lose weight. And so then I had to, change my point of view. Now I want you to understand, because I've always loved food, what was occurring simultaneously at that time is I started cooking when I was 7. So I would make muffins and stuff and hand them out to the neighborhood. I would read Gourmet and Bon Appetit. So I would read all these food magazines. I was already cooking. So, I already had this sort of food life.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, no more ketchup. I was like, no more soda pop. And I decided to take those things out, mm-hmm. and I, could keep going. But all that to say, as I've gone through different stages in my life, rather than from there, you're moving into college, and then are you going to lose more weight? And then because, of societal pressures, then you move into having children. Or, how far are you going to go, with that? And so there were all these different stages. But ultimately, for me, when I look at food, I had to take, I remember I said, well, what are you going to do with this? And then I'm going on to culinary school. So now I'm in France. And I mean, this food thing just isn't ending, right?
Right.
But I remember then, taking, significant pieces out. I've been a vegan, I've been a vegetarian, I've done keto, I've done all these different things. But ultimately, one day I decided, I said, all I want to be is happy.
Mm-hmm.
And wherever happy falls for me in any of these foods, that's going to be okay. And I'm going to find a way to rule my life so that I can eat what I want when I've decided to splurge, but at the same time, eat what I want that will be restorative, that will be the correct fuel. And I also don't want to walk around, and then this is a Courtney thing, I don't want to walk around and just, I don't want to be the healthy girl. Like, I don't want to be known as the healthy girl. That, that has its own connotations. And, and, I'm more fun, a couple extra pounds heavier. I know how to get down to that weight, but that means I don't get the extra drink. That means, there's a couple things I don't get.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right. I know that I can really relate to that too, because I feel like I started gaining weight as a child with puberty. And so there was just a general like uncomfortableness with my body and how I was developing and not wanting to move around as much or be seen or go out and play. And then that also led into teenage years where I did have people telling me, well, if you lost weight, you could date boys too, or you want to date to prom, right? And things like that. And it really it struck me early on that, for one, if that's what's really valuable and important to people, it's not so much to me, so I'm not going to beat myself up trying to make other people happy in that way. But that doesn't go to say that I didn't struggle with it. And, everybody, like you said, goes through their own journey with it. And I just, of course I, tried diet pills and all the other no foods, like that's going to fix your problem, just eliminating one type of food, and that's not sustainable. So I can totally understand that whole feeling of trying to accept where you feel the most comfortable, not trying to be what anybody else feels is correct for your body to be at. And I think that's really important for women to get used to that idea that they make the rules with their bodies and how they look.
Absolutely. No. And that is, yes, absolutely. I've gone through my own level of abuse in relationships around weight, and just my own, just self-destruction around it at times. But then, finding that point, and even when saying finding that point, that's not a flat surface area.
Right.
But, but for me, it is such a point of enjoyment. And then I've even gone into that, and what does that mean? And if you really enjoy your food, is that some form of addiction? And, now you can go down that path. And yes, for many people, food is an addiction. And for many people, there is imbalance. But for most people in life, there's some section of imbalance in everyone's life, whether they've decided to be the marathon runner, whether they've decided that they're going to, only gonna be on the cantaloupe diet for XYZ amount of, there's fanaticism in all of it.
Right.
So, you have to just find that point. And again, my sole goal every day is, what can I find to smile about? What can I be happy about? And it is the core of, you know, the company that I've started, the core of the company and the different aspects that I have. It is about, I love myself, and that's it. The rest of it, nothing else matters. The rest of it can all fall off the table.
Right.
So, and that's even my perspective, you know, in the videos. And it's so beautiful to hear what you said, because I was like, yes, that means I'm conveying it without trying to hit anybody over the head.
Right.
Because that's not what I want. Because that's, again, going back into the food, for me, you know, I was trained to do very high-end cuisine. But I like people a lot. And the portion of people who eat really high-end cuisine is a small portion of people in the world. And I like the people a lot, you know? And so and people want to learn about food, and people want to hear about food, and people, I believe, still want to just gain one extra nugget, but that doesn't mean they want the whole platter, you know, and they don't want to be hit over the head with it.
Right.
You know, and that to me is really, that's a cornerstone for me in my life, in, you know, being able to go around the world and have a conversation with someone about a piece of bread or a cup of tea, or, you know, you can sit there and it's like, man, this is the best schnapps I've ever had, like up at the top of this mountain. And some old lady's making it from her apricots in the back. And, you know, the jar looks a little dirty. And she's like, will you take a sip? And I'm like, damn, am I going to die today? But her smile is paramount to anything at that point, you know. Like, fine, I will drink this schnapps.
Right. I mean, because food is a great way to connect with people. We're all interested in it. And it's such a good way to connect with people and show love and appreciation and all these other things. And we always want to cut ourselves off for the sake of, you know, looks and other things, you know, but it's such a major part. We always see the virtue in suffering more than pleasure. And we always kind of stop ourselves short of enjoyment and make it like a guilty thing, you know, like when you do have that piece of cake or that extra drink or anything like that, you're always kind of, feeling like maybe you should be feeling guilty about it, or like, oh, you know, I shouldn't be doing this, you know. So what about the attitude of, yeah, just unabashedly enjoying things and knowing there's a balance? But, you know, if there's a fancy dress and you're not really going anywhere and you want to wear it, you can. If you have this nice, you know, piece of jewelry or nail polish and it's a Tuesday and nothing's happening, you're still allowed to wear it. You know, we shouldn't always push off our own happiness and pleasure for a later date. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. And especially right now. But it is definitely one of the concept of permission. Is I'm going to give myself permission. But even that permission, there's still a door right in front of that word permission. And that has been, you know, that is some aspect of our culture that, you know, and that isn't in every other culture. That's very much part of the American culture. And so, you know, other places, they eat a piece of cake. They eat a piece of cake every night. They don't eat the whole cake. Right. They don't get a giant Costco cake. Right. You know, it's just a cake. Right. But there is, but I agree with you in that sense of that there is this, it's a persecution instead of permission that is, you know, that is happening.
Right. Right. And so tell me a little bit more about your education. What led you to go into to culinary school?
Oh, that's funny. I'm not sure I have the choice around food. I grew up and I I'm telling you, I mean, I just loved it. So like I said, I started cooking when I was 7, and my mom was a great cook. We had, huge meals. There were people always coming by our home during the week, and she always had a giant, I mean, she made all the stuff, she was making curry chicken and enchiladas and pots of chili and, all these things. And so for me, I was naturally attracted to it. And then from there, I really probably moved more towards self-education. And then I read, I was an avid reader around all things food. And then, I went on to college. And when I was in college, I secretly wanted to go to culinary school, but my parents were like, no way, they were like, we didn't work this hard for you to go to culinary school. So I said, fine. So then I even enrolled in a master's program up in Canada because I knew the school that I enrolled in, there was a culinary school down the street. I mean,
oh my God.
in some mind, I really thought that I was going to go to Montreal and get a master's in urban planning and French and simultaneously be able to attend the culinary school down the street.
Right.
I am unstoppable. So, no, that didn't happen. So, but I later on after business school and kind of the turning point for me really was a friend of mine had committed suicide, a really close friend of mine. And I remember sitting at his funeral, and it was in this beautiful garden of this what was that, a museum. And the sun sort of came through. I was sitting there and everyone was remarking about how life was short. I was like, what am I doing? Why am I in banking? And then I made a promise. I made a promise to him that day, and I said, I'm going to figure this out. And that's exactly what, and still hide it from my parents. And I was very close to my parents. They've now passed, but they were my best friends. So yes. And then I was still trying to hide it from them, which is hysterical. So, but nonetheless, I ended up applying. I couldn't figure out how to go because a lot of culinary schools, at least the ones in the States, they won't give you a loan to go if you have higher education, which is, another story. Yeah, well, and so I ended up meeting this woman on a fluke chance who had just come back. She was a Rotary Ambassadorial Scholar. And then she said, I used this to go to interior design school. And I was like, wow, okay. And then she said, you might be able to do the same for culinary. And that was the door. And so I contacted the Rotary again in a very Courtney way. They were like, well, no, the doors are closing and everything happens 1.5 years in advance and yada, yada. And I said, well, when do the doors close? They're like, they're closing in 7 days.
No, you're like, oh, there's time.
I was like, 7 days. Do you know how many hours are in 7 days?
Right. Yeah.
And so I said, well, come on. And then I remember this gentleman, and he was like, look, people prepare for this for months. And I said, well, can I just give it a shot? He said, I tell you what, if you get anywhere close, like I might even give you an extra day. And man, I went to work and I got it in. And
wow.
And I think I was like 1 day shy of my transcripts. And he said, I'm so impressed. I will wait for those transcripts. So it was really beautiful because I was able to use that scholarship and discuss the importance of vocational studies, which is a very key to my heart. And I was the only one in that cycle who was doing anything that, there was a lot of rocket scientists and geothermal, but it was a beautiful journey. And I love the Rotary Club. They're incredible for scholarship. So.
Oh, interesting.
And there I went to the Cordon Bleu in Paris, and that's where I went for culinary school. And from there, it just, food just kind of just kept going. So.
Right. So what was your experience like in Paris? Was that your first time going out of the country or anything like that?
Oh, no.
No?
I think you could get an idea that if I get a door that can open, I'll go through a door. I'd love to travel, but it was not my first time in France, but it's almost like if you're gonna do it, do it. I mean,
yeah.
and that's the way it really was. I mean, the classes were phenomenal, but even the internships, I traveled significantly, which, really was another layer that really just can't be touched. I had some friends there, and one of my friend's husbands was in this law firm, so he had to go to all these different places, and he was like, Courtney, and I was just a student, and so then he would give me a price. It was really beautiful, this guy DDA, and he would say, I was like, what's my price? And then he would go, he's like 700 francs. And I was like, I'm good. He's like, you're good. And it was beautiful because we would go to these incredible resorts and incredible places to dine. And he would figure out whatever my sort of all-in cost was.
Right.
To be able to go. And that was another layer of education that, that went on top of it. That was phenomenal. So.
Wow. So with having multiple interests and things like that, or maybe even making the change, like you said you did in your studies, to focusing on food, since that was your passion, what would you say to somebody who's maybe struggling with something like that, who feels like maybe that the field that they're in really isn't their true passion, or just the fact of when we feel like we need to shift gears in order to be genuine with ourselves, when you finally come to the point when you're like, no, I think this other thing is actually more important to me. How would you encourage somebody to go ahead and make that jump? Because a lot of times there's a loss of security in making a move like that.
Well, you just hit it on the head. To me, and so I'll give this. So I was an adjunct professor for 12 years in culinary arts. So I had to go through this a lot. A lot of people would walk through my door who just knew they wanted to be chefs, and I would stare at them and I was like, I don't think so, dude. But, let's go through this. I always, my first inclination is always the financial, is to really look at, where is it that you're trying to go? And what are the first impediments? So are you highly in debt? Are you the sole, person that's responsible for your family? Or, there are all these things that are the first layer of any dream killers. That's the everyday dream killer, because those weigh on you and those haunt you when you go to bed and when you wake up.
Right.
I think it's very important to put those in a category and be very clear about what they are. Then you go back and you look at that dream and you say, well, what's it going to take for me to get there? What are these different steps? Is this an education? Is this somewhere where I need to leave my job, but then I could go work for free for 3 months and still, there's always so many ways to skin a cat. Do I, know anyone who actually does this? And I always am a proponent of interviewing people as well. And it doesn't matter how old you are. You should still go and interview people younger and older than you in that field and get their perspective. And to me, and all of this should be written down. And I'm very much a pen and paper person for everything. And I think once you write that down and then you sit there and you look, and then, and then with technology, can you cut, can you do it faster than the person's information that you gain? Because you might have gotten somebody, 30 years ago and they're like, I had to do it this way. And then there's the young kid that's like, just go do it. Well, I don't know about that sometimes either. And I'm very much a spiritual person. but sometimes that just do it doesn't work for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And, there has to be definitely some faith. And then there's got to be, some method happening around
Mm-hmm.
there as well. And then I think and then you do the pros and cons. I'm very much a pro and con list type of person. And I think if you can sit there and look at a dream from a full circle, and maybe at the center of that dream is how it makes you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And is there any way that you can go experience the dream without committing everything for it? Like that is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can do that, then that will begin to let you know what are you willing to risk for that dream.
Right.
And that's how I look at it. I mean, and I'm always up to something that has no straight path.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's great because something like that can very much be on like a fantasy status in your head. Right. So you're not really thinking of the practical steps, like the financial and all those other things, because it's just like this glowing, beautiful thing that you want. And yeah, there's practical, tangible parts of that you actually, if you nail it down, you can start to figure out how to work that out and make it happen. But it's funny how sometimes, I don't know, it's almost making it real scares people off too.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think, that's really the largest one, right?
Right.
And what is real? And then that gets dangerous too, because what's real for someone else who maybe is not on purpose, what was real for them may not even be your experience, but you still need to hear the possibility of some of those outcomes, I believe. But I find that, and I do the same thing with food, actually. I like people to get as close to what it is that they think that they want, and then begin to peel it apart and ask other people. Because sometimes, it's almost like a BLT. There's some people, they're like, I love bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwiches, but I don't eat pork. Okay. Well, then what is it that you like about the sandwich?
Right.
And it really is deconstructing that maybe all they really want was they just want the crunch of the bread, the squeeze of the tomato to come out, and that feeling of smoke in the middle. That may be all that they need. And so that could get them to what would be a BLT. For other people, they're like, that's not bacon and it's not a BLT. Right. And to me, it's the same way about a dream. You may think that you want to be a chef, and I would go through this with my students, or, and I do this in all industries with them. So you may think that you want to be a chef, but really all you want to do is you like to serve people. You may just like to serve people and see their delight. You could become a professional waitress, right? And they make great money, depending on what you're
right, where you want to go with it.
And I think that's the one thing that people often don't do in their dream pursuit is take those extra steps to really deconstruct what is it that they're after, because what they're after may not be what they think that they're after. And that's where the disappointment happens later on.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Right. Yeah, I know, because it sounds like you have a lot of interests, and I know I have a lot of interests. And a lot of times it feels like I'm just moving from one thing to the other, maybe not always finishing them, but I'm always looking for the next thing. And I feel like we're kind of taught that that's kind of bad. You start something, you finish it, then you can think about moving on to the next thing. But what do you think for like a creatively driven mind and that drive to keep finding new and exciting things to do? How do you kind of steer that in a productive way?
Well, again, if we go back to the core concept of joy, if we go back to the core concept of daily joy, so only you can define what your daily joy is.
Right.
So if your daily, there are some people who honestly don't even need that much shelter.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't. They're fine to sort of kind of wander around. And if they manage to be in a community or a society in which they can go and live with other people, they're fine. So now they've eliminated housing. They've
Mm-hmm.
eliminated, a car. And so to me, it really is about, it's your threshold of comfortability. Then once you have an idea, or making sure that you're learning that as you're going along, and then from there, it's adding all these things in. Some people, that culmination of unfinished things turns into something incredible years down the line. And that's not my judgment to put on it.
Mm-hmm.
And some things are not supposed to be finished. And that really is being in tune with yourself and being and allowing your intuition to lead you, because some things simply are not supposed to be completed.
Mm-hmm.
I suffer from that. I bridge old school and new age.
Mm-hmm.
And and those voices come and go,
Right.
at different points. But I think that being given the gift of creativity, man, of course, it has its torture points,
Right.
but I think that having the availability to be able to dance somewhere in the fantastical, and being able to take something that is nothing and create something, and being able to entertain yourself. I mean, there's so many aspects of creativity that it just cannot be quantified. And so I think that it really has to do, honestly, with your inner voice and your threshold, and managing those two, because everybody has different success points.
Right.
Some people, they don't need to make a lot of money. That's not what they need out of that.
Right.
And that's everyone's different determiner, and hopefully they have the courage to live in different places where they don't always feel that weight.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. When you were talking about that, it made me think of when we ask children all the time, what do you want to be when you grow up? But you have no idea of all the possibilities there even are. So you just look at the common, the little boys want to be the firemen, and the girls want to be the teachers and all that stuff. But there's so much more out there. And I don't know, like, what do we do about that with letting children and just people in general know the possibilities that are out there for them if they just open their mind to it? I mean, it really isn't a question we should look outwardly to try to answer. It seems like that question should really prompt us to look inside and see what bubbles up. And then that's the thing, not the professions you see around you.
Correct. I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and this may be a TMI or not. I'm going to, try and stay on one side, but I remember being a little girl and just being full of light, and just yes, and my parents some would probably say that they were indulgent, but they were lovely. And they're like, oh, you want to try that? Because they came from a time of no. They came from a very hard time of no. And so they tried to give me as many yeses as they could without me, being an out of control child.
Right.
And so, but I remember, glowing as a child. And I was having this conversation with someone the other day. And then I said, and then I remember waking up decades later. And I remember thinking, why did that glow have to stop?
Right.
Like, so then I had to sit there and then pull glow by glow. And then I could go glow by glow. Okay, I could string this one to this one to this one. But why can't the glow just keep going?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has so much to do with what you're talking about. Is it to me, if the twirling on the lawn and throwing daisies in your hair is your first glow, then why can't there just be enough yeses along the way where you just find another one, and maybe that one's catching frogs, and maybe from catching frogs, then, it turns into something else. But there should be as many yeses as there can be in this world. And once I analyzed it, I took a year of my life and kind of went off the grid and really just did some real digging. And one of the things that I remembered was hearing so many no's at a certain point in my life and swallowing those no's. I didn't know how to not swallow them. So, I think that goes into what you're saying. I think that there is a way, give or take, reality. And even that is suspect and personal.
Right.
But I think that there's a way to have a lot of yeses, especially if we're willing to work on that and make it available for everyone. I think so.
Right. And we have the power to give ourselves yeses, right? Back to the permission thing. We don't always have to get the okay from other people to be happy.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I feel like that's what people are looking for, is that validation for what they want, that's okay. But it's all up to you, what you want and how you want to live. So yeah, I love talking about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And it's so hard because you love people, and you don't want to make mistakes. And, there are all these other things that are quite valid on the other side as to why you're doing it, apart from the, you just don't want to be odd man out. But then there's that point in which, you're doing, you're stuffing and you start participating in a lot of stuffing.
Right.
But think of the people who don't even know they've been stuffing.
Right.
Like
that's a scary thought.
Now that's
because how do you turn that around then?
Yeah. And that, and that's something, and that has, again, so much to do with my core mission, and it really is, I love to twirl, and I grew up in a family that was, pretty conservative in this, and I was, and it all sounds very silly, but the chubby girl that nobody wants to pick, who keeps cracking too many jokes. And really, I just want to go outside.
Right.
And then moving along, and you keep yourself contained. And then one day I was like, shoot, I'm going to twirl my way out of here. Making that decision. And I was like, man, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to twirl around the world. That's like a personal goal of mine. So.
Right. Right. Yeah, I know my family was very practical and not very artsy or anything like that, but I'm very much the opposite of it. So I was lucky, like you said, that my parents gave me a lot of yeses. So they let me draw on my bedroom walls and things like that, I loved. But I was always amazed at sometimes, the things that they would say yes to. And then there's the other days where, dad's busy. Anything you ask him, the first thing out of his mouth is going to be no.
Yeah.
So yeah, you get used to that being the snap response, always no's.
Sure.
Quick. No's come a lot quicker than yeses sometimes, but yeah, the yeses are good. And anytime somebody gives those to you, you can tell that person, like you said, within reason, that person really cares about you, whether they understand you or what you're trying to do or not. But yeah, you can always find those good people that are like, all right, I don't know what she's up to, but yeah, sounds good. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, because there's also that, but also for people to be able to, and it all connects, right? So for
Hmm.
people to be able to say yes, then they have to be free enough to say the yes. So they
Right.
have to like themselves enough to welcome whatever the outcome of whatever it is of that next question. And
Hmm.
so, you know, that's where all of these layers have to happen, or you know, for different individuals, or that you hope that you are creating a community around you where enough people feel self-satisfied to one say yes, and to one be able to receive that yes.
Hmm.
And that's huge.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's so important that people understand and accept themselves first. And then the way that can really snowball and have a chain reaction through everybody near them. Um, but it's harder nowadays with how easily we are detached socially and everything. Just connecting with people today is becoming more and more a foreign concept of, especially a priority, right? I mean, we do things online and things like that, but just the simple thing of going to a family member's house for Sunday dinner, or when neighbors used to just come and say hi. Now it's like illegal to just go to somebody's
Yeah,
house unannounced.
yeah.
But people used to really be open to that and friendly with their neighbors and close with their families. And I just feel like there's a lot of disconnects that are happening along the way that are part of the problem, that we don't even know where our happiness lies in a kind of basic way. You know what I mean? Because you start, like you said about the glows, you can start losing your little sparks of happiness because you're not having that closeness time, and you're not having those meals, and you're not connecting with people enough that we disconnect with ourselves. We don't even notice or know how to rectify that.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you're right. I mean, you know, and right now, to me, is sort of it's both sides of the coin. It's so tenuous, and it's so uncertain. And then in another respect, I also feel like it's like a point of creation. Like
Hmm.
I feel that there are people that will walk out of this who are more appreciative, and who are more available for some of the smaller things. You know, I mean, what is neat is right now, as you know, we walk down the street, and where some people didn't used to say hi, they're like, hi,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We're getting
hi. Like,
desperate for human interaction.
like, yeah, I get you, because you've been up in that house for too long, you know. But in that same respect, I think, you know, there's so many ways. I mean, you and I could get into a conversation for a long time
Hmm.
as to, you know, why things happen. And so I do believe that there was such a focus, and there still is, on glitz versus glow.
Hmm.
And so, you know, when we keep looking toward others, um, to try and fill those voids, those who have the glitz, instead of being able to develop our own glow, you know, by something as simple as, you know, skipping rocks, or,
Hmm.
being able to hold somebody's hand, or, you know, it's those small things. And I agree with you. I am the eternal optimist. So I can only go so far, you know, because, you know, then I feel that, you know, if I go too far down the rabbit hole, then I'm off mission,
Right. Right.
you
Yeah.
know. I'm off mission. But it is one of those, again, which to me is, again, one of my personal cornerstones, is traveling.
Hmm.
And And enough people, I think a lot of people in America don't get the opportunity to travel as much as they could or should, so that they can begin to see how others' values are presented different and what they give to one's daily joy.
Absolutely.
And I think that is huge.
Right. Yeah. Having more of a global community rather than a country, city, state, all of those things. When we start to realize that we're all connected and we all want the basic things, we're all interested in, being happy, and, we're so similar in so many ways, and people forget all the time that, it's just another person, they're interested in all the same things as you. So yeah, I think the more we realize that, the more empathetic we can be, and the more conscious of just how our actions will affect somebody else. And if everybody behaved more like that, I mean, that would be fantastic. If everybody realized that their choices affected somebody else, and how to think about your choices more before you do them, if that was the case. But Courtney, how would you encourage somebody to figure out their own internal radiance, how to bring that out, or even learn to seek other people out that have that can kind of bring that out of them? Because I have to tell you, seeing you and your smile and your positive energy, you can't help but be drawn to you. So what could you say to people to kind of help them bring out their glow and all kind of be lights for each other?
For me, it's everything always starts with a pen and paper. I mean, I would hate, I have papers everywhere. I mean, and of course I use my notes section on my phone, but there's this, it's as simple as sitting there and saying, what I like and what I don't like. It's clearing your schedule and spending a day to say, what do I like and what I don't like? And just taking those steps. And those steps then lead, why? Well, why don't you like scrapbooking? Well, I know I don't like scrapbooking. I'm like, really? Hey, I got to sit here. I got to cut out this construction paper. I got to find the glue and I got to stick it on there. And then
right.
The best thing I got to do is hold up the thing.
Now I got a different piece of paper.
There's not many things I don't care for. Scrapbooking's at the top of them. Right? But I think when you give yourself again this permission to begin to make this list, it doesn't matter how long the list is. You could just be grinchy about it, right? Just write it all down. I don't like picking up anybody's socks. I don't like, I don't like the smell of this. I don't like, people who try to talk to me too much in line at the grocery store, which would be me. I wouldn't, I try to talk to everybody. I see people, they're like, won't she shut up? Okay, fine. But there's something about being able to make the list, and it's in private. You may not even not like what's on that list, because really you just may not like the person that tries to make you do it.
Right.
Or you may not like that you really spend too much money doing it. Like, there are all these things. Then you write down all the things that you love. And those happen the same way when you look at it. You may find out you don't really love that. Did you really? You really love, volleyball? Like, some people, you don't. You didn't want to put on the swimsuit. You didn't want to put on the shorts.
Right. All that sunscreen.
But I think when you make those lists and then you put it down and then you go back to the list and then you pick out things and then begin to really take some time to delve into why you like or why you don't like. And then from there, you begin to you'll be naturally drawn to certain things that you're like, well, I love to, so like one of my favorite things is, when you get these lists from very efficient business people, they'll sit there and say, well, first thing you need to do is cut out the Netflix, and you need to cut this out. You need to cut off all this, So you cut off all that, and it makes sense, and it does, and it works. But then there's a point in which you have to look at it and say, well, what is my lifeline? Mm-hmm. So one of my lifelines is I love to make dinners, and we eat them on trays. My children and I, when we're together, and we watch movies. That's my lifeline. Mm-hmm. There's no point in me making any money if I can't do that.
Right.
And so, and I think there are points in which where you begin to be able to choose what is your individual, what are the things that make you tick. And then you start to put those things together. And then that's when the light starts to shine. That's when you sit there and say, yes, I like to, drive long distance with my dog with the windows rolled down. And so then how often can you do that? Well, then you try and figure out, how can I pencil that in? How can I get that in, twice a month? But right. Then you begin to string more of those joys together. And I think even when you go to the point of what's drawn, the more that you move closer to what you like, the more the people show up anyway. They just show up because, you already got in the car with your dog, you meet somebody at the gas station, or you go out to lunch and you meet somebody there, or, you decide you want to take a salsa class, you meet somebody there. And then the hobbies, but God, the universe, the creator will provide. As you take this step out, somebody will step towards you. That's what I believe.
Oh, that was such an awesome note to end it on. Thank you so much for joining me today, Courtney.
Make sure to check out Courtney's Food Fixx. Links will be in the description. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.